Yo, what's good, man? It's your boy, eddy.mirrors. That's EDDY period MIRRORS at AOL.com. If you want that new raw footage, new raw music that's straight from the motherfucking street, and all of that noise, holla at me on my email, and I could give y'all all of that. I apologize about earlier. There was a lot of motherfucking cops out there in the streets, so I had to relocate to a different hood, a different facility, and all of that. You dig? I wanted to talk about the situation that took place after Chaka Khan's son D left the hotel room with a white bitch, and the white bitch, her name is Alicia, and they had stepped out by leaving me in the room. So as soon as D was out, I say for like an hour or two, when he stepped out the room to take a walk with Alicia outside somewhere, drink some liquor with the bitch, I guess, he comes back in the room. I can't even tell y'all what particular time it was, but I'm gonna post up, all of that while I'm giving y'all this interview. So he comes back in the room, he goes straight in on the motherfucking cocaine that was set up, crushed on the Wu-Tang CD. So while he's snorting that fucking mountain full of cocaine, I was just watching Godfather over and over and over again. By then it was already going on 3 in the morning. So while he's over there snorting that little bullshit, I'm over here rolling up a Kush blunt because he asked me to do so. Earlier, D was telling me how he was playing with Alicia's pussy, and they was laid out at the beach, sitting in the sand, I guess, and he was just playing with her pussy and kissing on her and all of that. But I guess she wouldn't let that nigga D fuck for some reason. I don't know why. You heard? So that was the story he was giving to me about dealing with Alicia. As soon as he came back in the room while he was coked out, you heard, and a little drunk. So after that, it was pretty much chilling, talking a little bit about the shit he was doing with Alicia before he came into the room. So he gets a phone call from front desk. I guess Alicia called and she was sounding highly upset. I guess whatever number she called, she had direct line, or I don't know. Somehow she got through the front desk, and front desk, sent a telephone call to his room, and he answered the phone. She sounded highly upset, claiming that D was a crook, he was a bastard, he was a piece of shit for stealing a CD out of her car about 2:30 in the morning or something, like around that time when he was chilling with her. So I guess around 2:30 in the morning, he took her CD out of the car, and I guess he got back to the room, or we was in the room by like 3 in the morning. So this was like during the time when he was at the beach with her, talking in the car or whatever they was doing out there. She claimed that this nigga jacked her, you dig? So she's describing how the CD look and all of that shit, and I got to see what actual CD it was, because it was in his leather jacket. So when he pulled that shit out of his leather jacket, there was some Rastafari nigga on it with like a gray and black army camouflage clothing on. It was like a Rastafari, a ugly motherfucker at that. It's like a dark black nigga, look like Exhibit Rastafari, with some gray and black army fatigue, army camouflage nonsense he was wearing on the fucking CD cover, you heard? So I guess this is what I think what happened. I think that since, Shorty didn't let him hit the skins, he probably was like, fuck this bitch, you know what I'm saying? Took something out of her car. Because when he was in the streets with her, riding around in traffic while I was in the room, I explained earlier, earlier prior to that time when he went with her to go pick up the cocaine from the Rastafari nigga, he was in a car like she parked, not literally in front of the location where she stayed, but, by there, I guess like up the block somewhere or something. And that's when he was calling me from her cell phone that was inside of her Jeep, calling me at the room, just clowning, clowning her, I guess, and all of that, you dig? But I guess, he pretty much, took the CD, and we didn't even get a chance to hear the shit, because I guess when she was on her way to come back and meet up with him, we probably heard like little bits and pieces out the shit. Because at the end of the day, I guess, he thought it was a hip-hop CD or whatever, So when he got to hear it, it was totally different from a hip-hop CD. It was some type of bullshit theories, I don't know if the motherfucker was a conspiracy theorist, but he was just talking about, revelations and, how Bibles, which were going to be rewritten in 2018 and all of that junk. So the excuse was he thought the CD was actually his, so that's why he took it. So besides all of that bullshit, she said she was on her way to holler at that nigga or whatever. So D steps outside to talk to the bitch, He comes back, and by the time he came back, they was probably gone for like, probably 30, 40 minutes. But by the time that nigga came back, I was already laid out on the desk chair. So I'm laid out, my head tilt back, I was pretty much asleep. So as soon as he comes back, he starts, blowing up his mother's phone, calling her back to back, wondering what was the status on the MoneyGram situation and all of that, So the next day, I go home, but before I went home the next day, I went to the restroom to take a shit. And when I came out, Arturo Ochoa was in the room smoking on a American Spirit cigarette and collecting money from D, which D owed money to him. It was about like $1,500. So while they negotiating their little differences and negotiating their business that they had between the two, Arturo gives me a ride to Venice Beach down the way, because at the time I had a homie that had basketball practice down the way. So I already knew I had a ride back for sure if he was to give me a ride up the street from where D was at. I had a ride, with some peoples of mine that can give me a ride back to our leader. So as time went on, I say July 1999, D calls me and leaves a message on my pager, tells me to meet him at Ralph's grocery market ASAP and to bring a little bit of money. I wasn't balling at the time, and I only had like $55 on me at the time, so I pretty much got a ride up there from my unknown sources and met up with him. So when I met up with him at Ralph's, we talked a little bit, and he was staying at a particular hotel, but I'll get into all of that later, you dig? So from the location where we was at, we met up at Ralph's right there on Ventura and Violent, Universal City location, right down the street from where the Universal Studios Park was at, and from Ralph's grocery market, I'm sorry about that, from Ralph's supermarket. We walked from there all the way up to Universal Studios City Walk. So D was pretty much talking to me while we was walking, talking to me about how he got a job lined up for us, and the job was to drive dead bodies around for our doodle, because our doodle was pretty much respecting D and respecting his style and respecting his moves. So that was the new job he had lined up. But at the time, he didn't really want to talk, too much in detail about it. So we was just, walking, half-ass talking, half-ass bullshitting, and he giving me the rundown how our doodle had that special particular job for us lined up for us, you heard? So D pretty much brought me and himself 2 tall cans of Coors beer, and he really wanted to give me some time to think about the whole shit while we was watching the movie. So after he brought me 2 cans of beer from the nearest liquor store that was on the journey, before we got to Universal Studios Park, he brought me 2 beers. We snuck in the movie theater. We was watching a movie, and I remember the movie like it was yesterday. I'm gonna post that up as well. So I was kind of like tripping about the whole shit because I was going through some bullshit at the time, because I was like working at this little piece of shit agency, and I wanted to find ways to make a little bit of extra money on the side if I could get my feet off the ground and start saving up to get my own place, you heard? So let me see. So after we left the movie theater, we pretty much went back to the hotel, and our doodle was blowing up his cell phone. D answered our doodle after our doodle left like 10 messages on his cell. D answers the phone. Our doodle somehow was already downstairs waiting on him to come outside. Our doodle calls from a payphone at this time because I don't know what made him do it, but I guess he figured if he called D from a different number, D would answer the phone ASAP. So when our doodle called from a payphone, I guess D didn't recognize the number, so he answered. Our doodle was screaming out his fucking lungs at D for not answering the phone. D made up some bullshit excuse why he couldn't answer the phone, because 1, he didn't know where his phone was at, and 2, he lost his pager at the bowling alley in Woodland Hills, California 2 days ago. D leaves me in the hotel and did not come back that night. He left me a Kush blunt and a 24-pack of Coronas that was in the little piece of shit refrigerator he had in the room established already. He comes back the next day at 6:30 in the morning. While he was gone, I was basically in the room all night, smoking on that little piece of shit blunt he gave me with some little skimpy shit, skinny as fuck, playing poker cards by myself and writing raps. So when the motherfucker came the next day at 6:30 in the morning, the motherfucker comes back with at least $10,000 in cash, all hundreds, flashing his fucking money, throwing it in the air like he was making the shit rain, talking about how he followed through with our doodle's, job he had lined up for him. Then he had like a new tattoo. I didn't really get into these tattoos earlier because I didn't feel like it was important. But when I met the nigga, I don't know how many fucking tattoos the nigga got now, but I remember his main tattoo. His main tattoo was a lion's face on his fucking shoulder. I think it was his right shoulder, the nigga. It was either his right shoulder or left shoulder. The nigga got fucking Simba's face from Lion King or some shit like that. But this time, he already had, that lion's face on him for quite some time. But this time, he got something new done to the tattoo. It was like fire. coming out of the lion's ears and on top of his head and all of that. It was just like a lot of fire and detail. Like the motherfucker hooked it up nice, whoever, he did it. Excuse me about that, y'all. I'm just, motherfucking acid problem is fucking with me right now. So, yeah, like I was saying, the nigga came back with a new tattoo, which was a lot of shit that was redone to it. He had a tattoo that was redone to his arm, and there was a lion's face with some fire coming out of it. Arturo's son, I guess, hooked him up with the fucking tattoo. And honestly, when it comes down to Arturo's son, I never met him. I didn't even know Arturo even had a son. So other than that, I don't know nothing about the son. I never seen him. But as far as that, this nigga D comes back flashing his fucking money. Comes back with a new tattoo, a fresh pack of Camels, a small bag of cocaine stashed in his backpack. So that nigga pretty much was rolling up a blunt while he was talking to me about all this shit, what was going on, while he didn't come home that night. I'm sorry about that. While he didn't come in the hotel, while he didn't come to the hotel room that night, he was explaining about all the bullshit he was getting himself into with Arturo when he was out there in the streets, you dig? So, as far as Arturo, I know D owed him $15,000, but he wound up giving Arturo $5,000 because he owed him for whatever, business aspect that had going on between the two. And D gave Arturo's son $200 to redo his tattoo that was on top of the lion's face that was on his arm. D was rolling a blunt at the time, but somehow, some way, the nigga rolled the motherfucking shit up so fucking fast. I guess he was still energized from not getting no sleep prior to that night. And we basically was smoking and we was watching a movie. I'm gonna post up the name of the movie in a minute as well. And pretty much, we just pretty much went to sleep, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get back more to the story because there's a lot of people walking around me and I don't know who they are. Holla at your boy if you need more details to this interview that I'm giving to y'all. eddy.mirrors @AOL.com.